Well, today I'm reporting from my Airbnb and I wanted to talk about Altium's groundbreaking solution. And while we are usually used to all kinds of PR hyperbole, here I really believe that Altium Discover will change the industry as a whole. Essentially, what Altium wants to do here is they want to integrate the entire electronics value chain into their own system. So basically, as a designer, if I'm looking, for example, for a machine to feed a cat, then I start out with a flowchart, cat feeding machine, and everything else is done by Altium, including parts procurement, selection of reference designs, blah blah blah. And this is a really aggressive solution. And at least what I've seen at Electronica, it seems to also work. And before I give you a bit more of my opinion, I wanted to show you, of course, the order of battle, and then an about 20-minute long in-action video which shows the technology working at the Altium booth. And yes, I'm sorry for the bad picture quality, but I was filming this with my hand.
So I'm going to start from something called Electronic System Designer, which I'll come to a little bit later, but most projects, they don't start from a clean sheet of paper. They start from something that's already existing, right? So in this particular case, I've got a traffic management system, okay? And I want to improve this system. And one particular area I want to improve is, say, the vehicle detection departments. So this is the subsystem area that I'm interested in actually improving. And I've got some requirements for how that might need to be improved. Like, for instance, I want to leverage latest AI technology to basically do that kind of vehicle detection. So what we could do today, I mean, how would I normally go about doing this? Well, I would take those requirements and then I'd be off searching the web, basically with hundreds of tabs open in my browser, trying to figure out ways that I could maybe approach this problem. One of the things we want to do with Discover is essentially make that process much easier. Okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is say, okay, well, maybe I've got some requirements that are captured inside my system design, and the first thing I can do is head over to Optipart. Now, Optipart is known as a component-centric kind of aggregator today. One of the things that you'll start seeing it evolve to is become more solution-centric, more application-centric. So if you start to come to Optipart, not just looking at like low-level part information, but as Ted was saying, start to look for solutions to the particular problem that I've got at hand. So in this particular case, what we've done is we've jumped to Optipart. Optipart is now connected to that platform. It's aware of that context that Ted was talking about, and it's already pre-filtered some of the solutions that might be interesting to me to kind of explore. So right here we've got, say, 5 different solutions it's come up with. We can see who's providing those solutions or reference designs or ideas, as it were. So we've got Avnet providing some here, Farnell, maybe Renesas has got one, and we could have any vendor who basically comes up and provides some idea for a solution. So let's dig a bit deeper. I think the speed camera detector with AI object detection looks to be something quite close to what I'm interested in. Let's take a deeper look into this. So I can click on this solution, and then I can start to find a bit more information out about the solution. I can see information about the actual design partner, say Avnet in this case, who produces this. I can start to understand more information about what they're good at, what their speciality is, so I might want to leverage them as a design partner in helping me here. But the other thing I can start to do is actually dig deeper into the solution and start to validate that it's actually going to be something that's useful for my purposes based on my requirements. So here we have a kind of a view of that block diagram, and I can dig deeper into the actual solution properties here. Now this concept of Solution Explorer, like Ted said, I'm showing you in the context of Optipart today, but tomorrow could also be used on a site, say, like Renesas, for instance. So these are solutions that could be provided by Renesas. We could have exactly the same experience on top of Renesas. Similarly, for any distributor or any other semiconductor manufacturer. Solution Explorer effectively becomes a bit like Google Maps. It's an embeddable component whereby you can give this really kind of really nice experience when it comes to discovering and learning about solutions that a vendor might provide. Now that's all very well. You say, okay, well we've figured that out, got a nice, so where do I go from here? Well, the power really, this is where the power of platform starts to come in. Because now I could actually take this particular solution and say, open it in what we call Solution Evaluator. Okay? And what Solution Evaluator is, it essentially allows me to take that design and start to dig deeper into it. So one of the things I can do to begin with is start to say, well, this particular solution, well, that's a good starting point. It's not perfect. There are things that I need to change that are based on my requirements. So say, for instance, I don't care about having a pressure sensor. I don't care about GPS in my particular use case. And I want Wi-Fi instead of an LTE modem here, for example. So you can see that I can quite easily start to come in and modify this block diagram to essentially reflect what it is that's interesting to me, what I need it to be. Similarly, I can capture other information, like this thing is AI accelerated, but for example, I also want it to be Linux based. Because inside my company, we're a Linux based company, I'm used to using that stack and I have lots of software and solutions that build on top of that. So I can do that. Similarly, there might be some software capabilities that the vendor provides out of the box. Right now this has AI object detection in it, but maybe that vendor also provides some AI facial recognition model out of the box that I'd also like to take advantage of. So again, I can come in and essentially start to customize this higher level system design to be reflective of what I want. This left hand panel as well is essentially a panel that starts to, it's like an intelligent panel. It will also automatically update based on how I'm modifying the block diagram and the information that I'm bringing in. And what it will do is start to surface things that are important to me. So say an application node that might be relevant about how I connect device A to device B, something of that. And this is also completely free text as well, so I can also come in and modify and add my own requirements. So the key thing here is what we're doing is we're creating this context really early on in the design piece that starts to capture all the things that are important to me. And that's really critical because this is where decisions are made based off all of this kind of information. Now, the other thing that we introduce here is a concept of what we call compare and select, because high level I might be saying, okay, well this architecture is now generally right, but I'd like to start making some more concrete decisions about, say, the choice of MPU that I would like here. So what we can do is click on this button here. Now based on that context that I've built up in my system diagram, I can now start to be much more intelligent in terms of providing, say, search results for parts that might be appropriate for solving this particular part of the system design puzzle. So here, for instance, I said on the block diagram I need it to be AI accelerated. And as you can see here, it's brought up this AI acceleration kind of line. So it starts to give me information that's relevant to my context and what I'm interested in, and it doesn't bring up information that I'm not particularly interested in. And I can come here and add my own criteria and modify this. This is something that people do generally quite manually today inside a spreadsheet. It's quite heavy work. It doesn't remain connected to the design. But here, as part of that whole digital thread, it's all linked together in one place. So in this particular case, I've decided that this Renesas RZ part is a good part. It fulfills my requirements. I can go in and actually then dig a bit deeper to understand, well, as part of that family, what are the differences between the actual parts that might exist within the family itself? And again, we can dig deeper into that. I might come along and say, right, well, that's good. I'm going to go ahead and decide to move along and use that component in my design. And you can see the block diagram then updates, and we've now got this yellow box that basically signifies the fact that I've made a component choice. This information is now stored in my block diagram. So we can add as little or as much detail here as we like, essentially to capture all of that intent. Now, one of the other things you might want to do is actually engage with someone. You might have a question that can't be answered just through documentation or other information that's available. So say I want to engage one of Avnet's FAEs or one of Renesas' FAEs or whoever it might be. I want to have a conversation. Now, if I'm going to do that today, I generally have to first of all go and find that person. Might not be that easy to do that. And then I'd have to spend a lot of time communicating my context to them, essentially sharing with them information so they can help me. So this is quite a drag to kind of go and do. But imagine I could do that from directly inside this diagram. So for instance, I highlight, say, part of the diagram that I'm interested in getting some assistance on. So in this particular case, I might want to say, well, connecting a camera to this MPU. You know, I've got some questions about how I go about doing that. So what you can do is just highlight that part of the diagram, maybe ask a question. Now what you'll see happen here is, first of all, other things that are not part of the context actually get blurred out. And this essentially shows how we can control the context that gets shared with the person that we want to engage with. So I don't have to literally, you know, expose all of my design. It's just parts of the design that I'm interested in and are important to that particular question. So I might say something like, do you have Linux device driver for this chemical? Something like that. We can go ahead and pose that question. Now, if you're an FAE who's working for, say, one of the vendors, what you would then be able to do is digitally connect with this platform, have that kind of communication thread directly attached to the actual design context, and you'll be able to actually exchange and work together in this way, as opposed to working across, say, email threads or things that are generally disconnected. Now, I can come back to this tomorrow, I can come back to this in 6 months, and all of that information, all that context is connected with the design that was prepared. Now, as we go further through that discovery process, what I might say is, right, I've got my design now to the point that I'm pretty happy with it, and what I'd like to start to do is actually evaluate this technology. Okay? There are many vendors out there who have evaluation kits, for example, but when I go and buy one of those evaluation kits, it's not aware of my application, it doesn't understand my context, it's just a kit. Now imagine that that kit, when it came to you, and actually, because you now have that context, was automatically either pre-prepared or could be easily configured to enable you to evaluate the part of your application that you're interested in, which is all of your application stuff, rather than all of the legwork that you would normally have to go and do this. Similarly, all the digital assets that come along and require with that kit, like the software stack, they can all be automatically scaffolded as well. So at this particular point, you'll be able to check out, get all of those digital assets, get those evaluation kits actually ordered and delivered, and then I'll be able to continue my evaluation journey. Now where the real power then continues here is that once we've, say, completed our initial discovery and evaluation phase, I might want to then start moving in the direction of saying, well, I'd like to do a custom hardware design, some kind of printed circuit board design. Because it's built on top of 365, what this means is that tools like Altium Designer can also start to consume and use this context. So, here's the latest version of Altium Designer running, for example, and here's that system diagram, or a version of the system diagram, actually inside AD today. So what this enables me to do is to take that system level context and now continue with my design flow, connecting this into the schematic layout, schematic capture, and the PCB layout. So we fully close the entire design loop. Similarly, at some point in the future, I might actually want to come from my design and start the discovery or evaluation process again, and I can do that from exactly within the test. So this whole Altium Discover, from ideation all the way down to the development side of things, is that one continuous flow that allows things to remain continuously connected with that system digital.
May I jump in here? Yes. How much does this cost per year?
How much does it cost per year?
Yes, for a small shop, one company, one small shop, one PCB designer, one accountant.
So actually everything that Altium does, including Octopart, that's intended for the solution discovery and search and everything, no end customer pays to use it. It's actually, we call it a seller pays model. So basically, who pays for it is the semiconductor companies and the distributors who are selling the components.
Okay.
So the way the model works is that effectively those companies are paying for access to customers.
Okay.
And so as an end user, you don't actually price it.
But let's now assume that we don't use Altium Designer for the PCB layout because, for example, in our case, I will be open, we have a very long-running relationship with one of your competitors who I don't want to name drop because, no, that is a Syrian, I'm a polite guy. But we have a very, very long-running relationship with them. Basically, since I unretired 10 years ago, we've been with them, and even before my military employer has been with them. And now my question is, if I use your system for discovery, how do I then take this data into my EDA system?
Yeah, so Lee, maybe can you answer that?
The platform's an open platform, okay? So the idea is that over time we would love other CAD vendors to also connect into that. We have support for some of those vendors in a basic way today. So if they actually connect to the platform directly, then you'll be able to take that digitally through. But even if there's no kind of direct digital connection, you still benefit from this system design and hardware architecture concept.
Okay.
Being able to exist and be managed inside the platform.
Okay.
So I would say that although you won't get all the benefits as if you were using Altium's PCB design and layout, you wouldn't have that connection, it's still highly valuable to help you solve your problems when it comes to electronic system design and hardware architecture.
Okay.
Yeah, it's independent of the CAD system itself.
Yes.
In the sense that everything that Lee showed you,
Yes.
you could use any CAD system after that. There are some things in terms of it transferring this data directly into that CAD system that work really well with Altium Designer. That would require a little bit more effort with a different CAD system, but there's nothing that blocks you from using any CAD system.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. So from a demo perspective,
Okay. So there's really nothing left other than to talk about, so why would someone care to do this? Why would someone care to use this? And really, it depends on who you are. So if we've talked about those three sort of important characters in this, the semiconductor manufacturer being one of them, why would you want to participate in this? One is that because you have more insight into what is being designed, you have the opportunity to sell more of your portfolio to the end customer, more share of the bill of materials. The other thing is that it gives you an opportunity through that digital platform to reach more customers than you would if you're relying only on your sales teams to go and sell to them. And then the last thing is to get more understanding of how customers are actually using your products. Right? On the other hand, if you're a distributor like an Avnet or a Farnell or someone like that, the key point here is that you want to get credited for that work that you do. You want to make sure that if you get that design in or that design win, that you're getting the revenue associated with that deal. But the other thing that's really important is that your whole basis of value, the reason why people choose to work with you as a distributor versus someone else, is how much sort of value you can add to them, how much you can help them. So this gives you a way where you can have a much closer, direct connection with those customers and help them more so that they actually see your value more. And then lastly, but most importantly, if you are an electronics engineer creating products, first of all, you are streamlining the way that you find your components, and not just one at a time, but by finding a solution, a module that can fit that. Like Lee said, he wanted to build an AI traffic detection system, but finding only the module that will work with the camera and then finding the other ones. Doing that in a way where we search for solutions is more efficient. The other thing is that, as he said, we're actually keeping this idea of digital continuity. So every conversation that takes place, every question that's been asked, everything that you've done, there's a digital trail that's kept for that. So you could go back to it later and see, why did I choose this? Why did I make that decision? And then the last thing is that you get to actually get more leverage from those relationships with your distributors, so you get more out of it. So that really kind of, just wraps up what we have with Discover today. And happy to answer any other questions.
From my point of view, this is one of the most significant announcements which we've seen in the electronics world in the last few years. The reason for this is you need to understand that Altium basically now installs itself as an octopus-like hub in the middle of the industry. And this is a problem, basically from my point of view, for almost everybody. Because you need to understand, these people are owned by Renesas. And while, of course, when they asked, they claimed that the Renesas has an arm's length relationship to Altium, well, insiders at Altium told me that they were told the main reason why Renesas bought Altium was to get access to the Altium 365 cloud and its data. And so, of course, other chip vendors have a problem, because I think it's only a question of time until when Renesas parts will be placed more prominently. But in addition to that, we've also got other stakeholders. For example, parts search engine machines, because this thing also contains a part search engine. So from my point of view, it will be very interesting to see how the electronics industry as a whole will react to that. And of course, I would be very thankful if you could leave comments so we could have a discussion. In the meantime, thank you so much. And yes, I will try to have more videos on the Electronica in the next few hours. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and thanks in advance for your comments.